Hi, grade eights, and welcome to this last lesson number 5 in our short introduction. So this is our game that we've got in front of us at the moment. We've got if you have not done the previous 4 lessons, then you won't be able to do this one because we obviously we are picking up on the code from where we left off. Okay, so you must have done the first 3 lessons. You must have done the first 4 lessons before you tackle this one. Okay, so we have got so far we've done the hamburger. So we can put the hamburger actor on. We can steer it around with our cursor keys. We put 2 ants in here for test right in the beginning. We can teleport them. We can they kind of randomly move around. And in the very last lesson as well, we can also eat them with the hamburger. So when we collide with them, okay, they call that collision detection in gaming. So if the hamburger collides with me, if I'm an ant and the hamburger collides with me, then I teleport to somewhere else on the screen. So what we're going to do today is we are going to just fix up a couple of things. Okay, so here I'm back in my code. I'm in the My World class now. Okay, so here I'm in the My World class, and this is what we have got so far. So I'm going to just change a little bit of stuff around here quickly. Okay, so in a previous lesson, I showed you how to write your own methods, and that's what we're going to do now. We don't want to put too much code inside of the constructor or inside if we've got an act method going. Okay, we want separate methods to do separate jobs. So I'm just going to enter some space in here. Okay, so after my world. Okay, so before the end of the program. Okay, so between the last 2 squiggly brackets, I'm going to write myself a new method. Okay, so I'm going to say /*, and I'm going to call this prepare. So this method prepares the world for first use. Okay, so as the game starts, this method will place the ants and the hamburgers, and you'll see now the score as well. It will place them into the world for us. So before the game starts, this method will run. Okay, so here we go. It's going to be private. We've done this before, so it's private void. It's called prepare. And inside of here, I'm just going to go here, and I'm just going to cut the ants and the hamburgers, and I'm going to paste that into the prepare method. There it is there. And now what I can do here, you've seen me do it before. We have got this method called prepare, so I must call it. Okay, so prepare, when I call that method, it will run this here, and the object will be put into the screen. Let's just test that. So I'm going to say compile. Okay, I've got no errors. Let's go to my game, and you can see my hamburger and my ants still get placed in the game perfectly. So that is working. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I'm going to change some things here slightly. So I'm going to come up here to the top of my game. Okay, right up here at the top. And I'm going to define myself a new property there. Okay, so I'm going to say int. Okay, it's an integer. Okay, we know what an integer is. It's a whole number, no fraction or no decimal place. So integer, so it's int number of ants. And I'm going to say equals 5. So this here will be the number of ants that I want to have in my game. Okay, so if whatever you set that number to, that's how many ants you will get. So let's go put that piece of code in. Okay, so I'm not going to add the ants like that. Okay, so I'm going to just get rid of the 2 add ants. I'm going to write myself some code here. Okay, now I could put 5 add objects. Okay, if I want 5 ants, I can add object 5 times. But what happens if I want 1,000 ants? Okay, I don't want 1,000 add objects lines of code. Okay, that's inefficient because how many add objects do I want? Well, I want this many. So whatever that number is, that's how many add objects I want. So this is a prime example now of what we call a loop. Okay, we are going to loop number of ants times. Okay, so in this case it's 5, but whatever that number is, we are going to run a loop and we are going to add our ants inside of a loop. So this is the first time you've seen this. This is called a for loop. Okay, we've seen this in Scratch before and in Alice before. So let's do this. We're going to say for, okay, and bracket as we usually do. Now inside the for, okay, it's looking for 3 pieces of information. And this is the loop counter. This controls how many times the loop will run. So I'm going to say I want a new integer called count, and I want it to start at 1. Okay, so I've declared a new variable called count, and I'm going to use it for my loop. This next thing that I've got to put in here will keep my loop looping. Okay, so for as long as this condition that I put in here now, for as long as it is true, my loop will carry on running. So I'm going to say count is less than or equal to, okay, number of ants. So as long as count is less than or equal to number of ants, the loop will keep going. Now I'm going to say count plus plus. I want to increment, so each time the loop runs, I want the value of count to go up by 1. So let me put some code in here, and you will see how that works. So inside the loop, this is where I'm going to say add object. Okay, so I'm going to say add object. Now remember, add object is a world method. Okay, it's a method for the world. I can use it here because I am in the my world class. I am coding as a world, so I can safely use add object here. Now remember, it wants 3 pieces of information. Okay, the first thing it wants is, what do you want to put in? Well, I want a new ant. Okay, that's what I want. I want a new ant. Then it's saying, well, where do you want the ant to go? Okay, well, I want it to go to some random place on the screen. Now, you've seen me do this before. Greenfoot, get random number. Okay. So I wanted to go to some random X value. So I need to ask the screen, well, how wide are you? So I can use the get width method. Now you'll see I did not put get world in front of it. Why not? Yes, you are correct. Okay. Get width is a world method. Okay. And I am busy coding as a world. Okay. It's only if I'm as an actor. So if I was an ant or a hamburger and I wanted to use get width, then I would have to put a get world in front of it because I would then be an actor. Okay, but at the moment I am a world, so I can safely just say get width. And then I want to say Greenfoot dot get random number, and this time I'm going to say get height. Okay, so what's going to happen here is prepare gets run. Okay, so my world is the constructor. Okay, so the first thing that happens is up top here, the screen gets created for me. An 800 by 600 blank screen gets created for me. Then the prepare method runs. So this thing's going to run here, and a new hamburger gets placed at that location, 450, 200. Okay, And after that, a loop will run 5 times. So the first time the loop runs, count is 1. An object gets created, a new ant. Count gets bumped up to 2. Okay, 2 is still less than number of ants, and number of ants we know is 5 from the top of the program. So 2 is still less than or equal to 5. Another one runs, count bumps up to 3. 3 is still less than or equal to, count bumps up. Now it's 4, count becomes 5. Okay, it's still equal to, okay, count 5 is equal to 5. An ant gets put down, count becomes 6. This is now false because 6 is no longer less than or equal to 5, and the loop stops running. So this piece of code, as I've put it in here, if I compile this and I go to my program, I should now have 5 ants. Okay, so each time, and you'll see every time I hit the reset button, the 5 ants will go to 5 locations. Each ant will move itself. Okay, we've already written the code for the ant. So each ant is a separate object. It knows how to randomly move around, and each one of them, even though I had 2 ants before, I can make 100 ants here. It does not matter. They all know how to move individually, and they all know what to do if the hamburger touches them. Okay, that's the thing with object-oriented coding. Whatever I put on the ant, every ant has that knowledge. Inheritance. Okay, so let's come back to my code. Okay, so what if I want my hamburger to start off in the middle of the screen? Well, I don't want to put it at 450. I want to put it at get width divided by 2. Okay, so that'll be the width of the screen and half of that. Okay, and I can do the same thing here. I can say get height divided by 2. So it doesn't matter what size I make my screen, the hamburger will always go at half the width and half the height. Let's have a look. Compile. And there we go. Hamburger is right in the middle of the screen. Okay, and each time I reset the game, the ants go random, the hamburger stays in the middle. Perfect. Okay, so now this next piece of code. Okay, the next piece of code is, I don't expect you to remember this next piece of code. Okay, it's a little bit more complicated. But the reason I'm putting it in here is because I don't think the game would really be nice if there was nothing counting how many ants we'd eaten. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make a score, how to put up a score. Okay, so you just follow along carefully with what I'm doing. So I'm going to come here into the class hierarchy here, into an empty place, okay, down here where my arrow is, where my mouse cursor is. I'm going to right-click. Okay, so I right-click the mouse and I go to import class. So I say import class. Now remember I said to you that there's Greenfoot and there's world and there's actor and there's Greenfoot image and there's a whole lot of classes that come with Greenfoot. Well, there's even more. Okay, there's these extra ones as well, and we want the second one, counter. So click on counter and then say okay. Okay, so if I now go to my program, you'll see here that a counter, an actor called counter has appeared here. Great. Okay, so now that I've got that actor, I'm going to do some programming for it. So up here, underneath the number of ants, okay, I'm going to define myself a new variable. Okay, its type is counter. It's a counter type. And its name, I'm just going to call it score. And then I'm going to say, okay, it's a new counter. Okay, so it's going to run the counter constructor. And I want the counter to be called dead ants. So we have declared, you can see here, we declared a new integer, and we called it number of ants, and we set it equal to 5. Now we declared a new counter. we called it score, and we set it equal to be a new counter with that text in it. Okay, so we have declared our counter. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my prepare method, okay, and just here above the add object, so just above the hamburger, okay, over there. You can put it anywhere near, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to put mine there. I'm going to say score, okay. Now we know that score is an object, okay, because we declared it like that. Okay, so score is an object. It's a counter object. And because it's an object, it has methods. Okay, so I'm going to say score dot, and I'm going to say set value to be 0. So set value is a method of the counter class that allows you to set it to 0. Okay. Now I'm going to say add object, because I want to add my score onto the screen. Okay, so we know that add object wants 3 pieces of information. The first thing it wants is, what must I add? Well, I want you to add my score object. Okay, I'm not going to say, like here I said new hamburger. I've already said that up top here, new counter. I've put it into score. So I'm going to say score is the object I want to add. And where do I want to put it? Well, I want to put it at an x of 70 and a y of 20. Okay, so if I now compile that and I go to my game, you'll see I've now got a score up in the top left corner, and it's got dead ants in front of it. Okay, that was the piece of text that I put into the counter initialization when I initialized it. You can see there, dead ants. So that string of text I put there, that's what appears in the counter. Excellent. So now we have created our counter. Okay, so up to now, there's nothing too freaky here. You've probably followed what has been happening because it's something that we've done before. Most of the things here are what we've done before. Okay, now's when it's going to get a little freaky. So just follow what I'm doing. Okay. So the trick with object-oriented coding, okay, and you can see here, we've made a new score, we've made a new hamburger, we've made a whole lot of new ants. But the trick here is that each individual object, so each ant, has no knowledge of any other ants or any other objects. Okay, so as far as it's concerned, it's the only ant on the planet. Okay, it does not know about it. So the ant does not automatically know about the score. Okay, the score is an object, the ant's an object, but the objects do not know about each other. Okay, so that's the tricky thing. Okay, with when it comes to object-oriented coding. So here's what I've got to do. I know that I am going to give myself some score when the ant gets eaten, which means that I'm going to need to increase the score inside of the being eaten method of the ant class, right? But if I can't increase the score unless I know what the score is. So here's the tricky thing. Inside the ant, okay, there where you've got new ant in the brackets, I need to pass the score object. Okay, the score object here, I need to pass that into each new ant. So when the ant gets created, that ant will get created with knowledge about the score. Okay, so that is the tricky thing. Now, I've got to go back to the ant. Okay, so I go back to the ant. I'm going to get an error here. That's fine. I'm going to fix that error now. That's what the red underline means. It says, watch out, there's something wrong in my world. And you can see I've got an error here. The error is saying, be careful. Here you've put score in the brackets, but the ant class is not expecting a parameter. So I must come to the ant class now. Okay, so I go to the ant class. And now what I do is I go up to the constructor. Okay, remember, here's my constructor at the top here. I need to say to it, okay, be careful. You are going to receive a counter. Okay, you are going to be coming in the brackets is going to be a reference to the counter. So I need to accept that. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is underneath the speed, I'm going to create myself a new counter object. Okay, and I'm going to call it score. You can call it anything you want as long as you keep it consistent. Okay, so I've declared a new variable called score. And now what I must do is I must say score is equal to SC. So this counter that got passed into me, I must save its value. If I don't do that, it will, as soon as the constructor stops running, it will die. Okay, this is something called scoping. I'm not going to teach you about scoping here. Okay, just believe me when I say that we have to save this information. So I've declared score here in the ant, and I'm going to the score that gets passed into me. I save that reference. Great. So now the ant has knowledge. I can now compile this, and you can see that error from the my world is gone. Okay, so the ant now has knowledge about the score. So now I can go down to where I got eaten. Okay, so I go down to being eaten down here. Okay, and I'm going to add some code in here. So I'm going to say add the kill to the scoreboard. Okay, so the fact that I've been killed, I want to add that onto the score. So I'm going to say score. Okay, remember score is an object. Okay, it is a counter object. It has built-in methods, and one of those methods is called add. So I want to add 1 point to whatever the score currently is, and that will do it for me. So I'm going to compile. That is, my code is now complete. So I'm going to compile that. Let's go back to our game. Okay, let's run it, and let's see if I get any. Yep, there's, you can see it's counting ants. As I'm eating the ants, you can see my score going up. So every time I eat an ant, I get more score. Okay, well, that's going to be as far as I'm going to take you guys in this game. With the knowledge that you have gained, I'm hoping that you will go and play around some more with it. Okay, for example, I'll show you something you could do. You could go, say, to my world here. You could right click it, and you can say set image, and you can go to backgrounds, and you can go and pick a different background, right? So let's say you could go and pick that background if you wanted to. Then you can right click and say new my world, and now you've got a different background. So when you run your game, you'll be on a different background. Okay, guys, I hope you had a lot of fun with this. We have covered a lot of ground here. I've shown you a lot of different things. We've seen how for loops work. We've seen how if statements work. I've shown you how methods work. I've shown you how to write your own methods. We know that the act method is super important to Greenfoot because that runs 60 times a second. That's the sort of thing that animates our whole game. We use the act method to do the animation. We know what a constructor is. So we're in just these 5 short lessons, we really have done a lot of stuff. Show your game to your parents, guys. I'm telling you now, they'll be amazed at what you are able to do. Okay, so share your knowledge. Okay, just share this with your parents. I'm sure they would love to see the type of things that you do. So I hope you had fun doing this. If you have a look on my channel, on my YouTube channel, there are some other games there that now you'll be able to build. They're exactly like this. Most of them are just 2 videos each, but they are different types of games, and some of them are a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something at the same time. Excellent. Cheerio for now.